The air is thin and bitterly cold at 30,000 feet. Below, the Japanese islands drift by like a dark, wrinkled map under a dome of stars. Inside the pressurized cabin of the B-29 Superfortress, the crew is vigilant, their eyes scanning the blackness. The steady drone of four massive, Wright R-3350 engines hums, pushing them toward their target. Suddenly, the intercom crackles. A gunner calls out a contact. A single, fast-moving shape climbs with astonishing speed, a black cross against the pale moonlight. It is not a Zero. This aircraft is thick, muscular, purpose-built for this very moment. It is the Mitsubishi J2M Raiden. This scene played out with increasing frequency in the skies over Japan during the final, desperate year of the Second World War. Fighters like the Mitsubishi A6M0, elegant, agile in 1941, were now largely helpless. They struggled to reach the B-29's altitude and lacked the firepower to bring one down. Japan needed a new weapon, a defensive fighter built to climb fast and kill bombers. The answer was the J2M Raiden. Its name translates to Thunderbolt. Allied reporting name: Jack. It was designed by Jiro Horikoshi, the creator of the Zero. But the Raiden departed completely from his earlier philosophy. The Zero was a lightweight rapier, prized for range and maneuverability across the Pacific. The Raiden was a heavyweight sledgehammer forged for homeland defense. Its mission: be a pure point defense interceptor, a guardian against the high-flying silver giants that threatened Japan's cities. Instead, the design prioritized three key attributes: speed, rate of climb, firepower. Everything else was secondary. The result looked and felt completely unlike the Zero. Compact, heavy, powerfully built, sacrificing delicate grace for raw vertical performance. Horikoshi knew that to get the required speed and climb, he needed a massive engine, which required a strong, heavy airframe. That heavier construction allowed armor plating for the pilot and self-sealing fuel tanks, essential when flying into concentrated defensive fire from a B-29 formation. The Raiden was built to absorb punishment, deliver a devastating blow, and, if fortune allowed, bring its pilot home. This shift admitted the air war had changed. The era of the nimble, long-range fighter was ending. The future, as Navy planners and Horikoshi imagined, favored specialized aircraft for specific roles. The Raiden was Japan's first serious attempt at that. The Raiden's story: innovation from necessity, brilliance hampered by a nation collapsing. Conceived years before the B-29s appeared, its troubled development and wartime chaos meant it only found its role in the final, fiery chapter. This model, the J2M3 Type 21, represents the definitive version of this troubled but lethal aircraft. Today, we uncover the story of Japan's desperate attempt to build a defender against the storm. Built around power, streamlined by necessity, armed to kill. In those last months, the Raiden and its pilots were thrown into brutal, high-stakes battles, fighting for their nation's survival against the relentless stratospheric onslaught. The Mitsubishi J2M Raiden represented a profound and necessary shift in Japanese fighter design philosophy. Its creation was a direct response to a 1938 specification from the Imperial Japanese Navy, calling for a land-based interceptor with exceptional climb and top speed. It was conceived for homeland defense, not conquest. Had it been developed without problems, it might have been a formidable answer to the B-29 Superfortress threat. To meet the demanding requirements for speed and climb, Jiro Horikoshi's team built the Raiden around the largest and most powerful engine available to them, the Mitsubishi Mk4RA Kase-23, a 14-cylinder, air-cooled radial engine. This power plant was typically used on large bombers. Fitting it into a compact fighter meant a tight cowling and an engine-driven cooling fan to force air over the cylinders. One of the Raiden's most distinctive features was a long extension shaft connecting engine to propeller, letting the engine sit further back and enabling a tapered nose. The Raiden used a laminar-flow wing, novel for Japanese designs then, reducing drag at high speeds and boosting performance. Armament broke from tradition. The J2M3 carried four 20mm Type 99 cannons, two wing-mounted, two in the fuselage firing through the propeller arc. A short, accurate burst could tear open a B-29's wing, ignite a fuel tank, or destroy an engine. Pilot survivability was prioritized: an armored headrest, bulletproof glass, and self-sealing tanks. The Raiden was a complete package: fast, heavily armed, and tough. Despite its promising design on paper, the Mitsubishi J2M Raiden was plagued by severe development problems that delayed its entry into service. Tight cowling, an experimental cooling fan, and the powerful casse created a recipe for chronic overheating. During critical high-power climbs, engines ran dangerously hot, leading to power loss, and, in some cases, complete engine seizure. The extension shaft introduced nightmarish mechanical failures, severe vibrations stressing mounts and reduction gears. Ground crews struggled to maintain the complex system with scarce tools and expertise. The high cockpit sill and bulky fuselage created blind spots. Combined with high landing speed and narrow track gear, landings were exceptionally tricky. Unstable on final approach, many aircraft were damaged or destroyed even by experienced pilots. Meanwhile, Japan's industrial base was collapsing. Quality control declined. New aircraft rolled out with electrical, hydraulic, and engine defects, potential death traps needing extensive rework. The dream of a superior interceptor was undermined by a collapsing war economy. The Raiden's first significant combat deployment occurred in the autumn of 1944, when units were dispatched to the Philippines to counter the American invasion. Rather than being flown, they were disassembled, crated, and shipped, many sunk by American submarines and aircraft en route. Airfields were makeshift. Crates arrived missing components, tools, and manuals. Mechanics, used to the zero, wrestled with the Raiden's temperamental casse. Many airframes stayed grounded. American Hellcats and Corsairs swept in, strafing and bombing. Many Raidens were destroyed before flying a sortie. The few sorties flown were often aborted. Landing gear collapsed, engines overheated, hydraulics failed. Worse, the Philippine Air War was low and turning. Not the high-altitude battle it was designed for, forcing dogfights it could not win. A skilled pilot could make its speed and firepower count, but the debut was a frustrating and costly failure. By early 1945, the Raiden was pulled back to Japan for the role it was designed for, defending the islands against B-29 Superfortresses. Elite interceptor units formed up, the 302nd Naval Air Group at Atsugi, equipped with the J2M3 Raiden. Sirens wailed, pilots scrambled from camouflaged revetments, racing to climb before American P-51 sweeps arrived. B-29s bombed from 25,000–30,000 feet, at the limits of Japanese interceptors. Raiden pilots shoved throttles forward, eyes on the temperature gauge as it crept toward red. The cockpit shook, the engine roared. At altitude, they met self-defending combat boxes, each bomber bristling with overlapping 50 caliber turrets. A lone interceptor flew into a wall of fire. Survival depended on speed, surprise, and a precise, minimized exposure attack. Despite the danger, the Raiden proved one of the most effective B-29 killers in Japanese hands. But there were always too few to be decisive. The tactics were aggressive, direct, and fraught with peril. Preferred, a high-speed head-on pass from slightly above. Closing speeds over 500 miles per hour left seconds to fire at the cockpit or wing roots, then brake violently to avoid collision and gunfire. High-side dives aimed at wings or engines exploited the Raiden's roll and speed for quick in-and-out strikes. Tail attacks were generally avoided. In a long, slow approach into the tail turret's sights. Lieutenant Yoshihiro Aoki of the 302nd became renowned, determined, skillful, embracing the Raiden's strengths. From Atsugi he climbed on the edge of the red line, slashed the gleaming formations, trusting armor and 4 cannons, credited with downing 2 B-29s and damaging a third in one sortie. But stories like Aoki's were rare. Many Raidens fell to defensive fire or engine failure. Pilots bailed out or dead-sticked home. Fuel, spares, and constant fighter sweeps made each takeoff a victory. These were desperate, high-stakes duels where the odds were stacked. Brave men in a flawed but powerful machine. The ultimate impact of the Mitsubishi J2M Raiden was limited by low production and its late arrival. Only about 475 were built, minuscule next to thousands of Zeros and tens of thousands of Allied fighters like the P-51 and F-6F. B-29 raids crippled industry. Small Raiden numbers were at best a nuisance to massive bomber streams. Post-war tests, even by Charles Lindbergh, praised speed, climb, roll, and armament, but confirmed engine unreliability, dangerous shaft vibration, cramped cockpit, and harsh low-speed handling. A good idea hampered by rushed development and poor quality control, an advanced concept let down by a nation fighting a losing war. It marked Japan's shift from offensive air superiority to grim, homeland defense. The right idea at the worst possible time. The Mitsubishi J2M Raiden was a fighter born of necessity, a Thunderbolt forged in desperation, a tragic what-if, potent, flawed, and not the Zero's successor but its stark opposite. What other late-war wonder weapons might have mattered if fielded earlier? Tell us in the comments and subscribe for more W2 deep dives.